What's up, YouTube? We're going to do something a little different today. I know I have a fishing channel, but today what we're going to do is actually free trips for commercial driver's license. And how does that relate to fishing? We all got to pay for our fishing hobby somehow, right? So I'm venturing into a new career, and I'm going to help those who are also venturing into a new career by starting with the free trip. So first thing we're going to do over here is we're going to touch everything. Let me get in frame here. We're going to touch everything that we can. That way the DMV instructor sees that. They know the part that you're talking about. We're going to point to everything that we actually can touch. So the first thing we're going to start out with is our clearance lights up on top of the cab. They are amber in color because they face the front of the vehicle. They're not cracked, broken, or damaged. They're securely mounted to the vehicle, and they're not missing any hardware. Next, we're going to go to my windshield. My windshield is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. There is no heavy pitting, like from rock chips, no heavy pitting, and it has no illegal stickers, okay? The next thing I'm going to do after my windshield seal. My windshield seal is not excessively worn or torn. It's securely mounted to the vehicle and it's not leaking. Next I'm going to go with my windshield wipers. My windshield wipers are not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely attached, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. My windshield wipers are attached to the vehicle through the windshield wiper arms. The windshield wiper arms are not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. The windshield wiper blade, the rubber on the blade, is not excessively worn or torn, and it makes full contact with the vehicle. Securely mounted to the vehicle. The next thing I'm going to do is my lights. My lights up front. My lights covered. They're clear. They're not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. Behind the cover, big inside light represents my low beam and my high beam. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. This light is amber in color. It faces the front of the vehicle. The one on this side represents my right turn signal, my running light, and my four-way flasher. The one over here on this side represents my left blinker, four-way flasher, and running light. Neither of them on either side are cracked, broken, or damaged. They are securely mounted to the vehicle, and they're not missing any hardware. Next thing I'm going to do is bend down. Hopefully you can still see me. I'm going to look under my vehicle. I'm going to make sure the vehicle isn't leaning to either side. If my vehicle was leaning to either side, it could indicate a suspension issue, a flat tire, or a shifted load. Also, I'm going to look under the vehicle to make sure there's no low-hanging hoses, no low-hanging wires, no leaking or puddling. I don't see any of those things. So next I will go to the under the hood. When I go to open the hood, do the passenger side latch first, the important later, and I'll do the driver's side latch. Next piece seems ridiculous, but it's actually very important. When I open my hood, I need to have 3 points of contact. I open up my hood. Now we'll go inside the hood. So as we start the underhood portion of the A pre-trip, we start with the top down. I'm on the passenger side of the vehicle, and we start with the top down. This is my coolant reservoir. My coolant reservoir is not cracked, broken, or damaged, and it's not leaking. Anything that holds any type of fluid or air, I need to say, is not leaking. So my coolant reservoir is not cracked, broken, or damaged. It's not leaking. It's securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. It's also at the proper level. Very important. Anything with fluid, especially reservoirs, at the proper level. Power steering fluid, coolant, oil, windshield wiper fluid, all of those things need to stay at the proper level. So again, coolant reservoir is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. It's at the proper level. My coolant cap, it's not cracked, broken, damaged, or leaking. It's in the Loctite position, securely mounted, not missing any hardware. The rubber seal underneath my cap is not excessively worn or torn. It's not leaking. Then the next I'm going to go down to my alternator. My alternator, it's not cracked, broken, or damaged. It's securely mounted to the vehicle. It's not missing any hardware. My alternator wiring, there's no exposed, frayed, or damaged wires. They're properly routed. They're securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. This one might be a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to go in here. My water pump. My water pump, it's not cracked, broken, or damaged. It's not leaking. It's securely mounted to the vehicle. It's not missing any hardware. Both my alternator and my water pump are belt driven. The belt, it's not excessively worn or torn, not damaged or frayed. When I pull from the center point of my alternator belt, there should be no more than 3/4 of an inch of play. Very important to mention your alternator and your water pump are belt driven. I'm going to examine all of the hoses on this side of the vehicle. None of my hoses. They have no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They're not leaking. They're securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. All of my wiring on this side of the vehicle, there's no exposed, frayed, or damaged wires. They're securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. They're also properly routed. You can do the brakes on this side if you like. I actually like to do the brakes on the other side, but for this video, because there is a lot more room, I will go with the brakes, and more than likely cover them again on the other side. So there is your brake chamber. Let me get my GoPro set up here. Alright, next we're going to go with our brakes. This is the brake chamber. See the whole brake chamber. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged. It's not leaking. It's securely mounted to the vehicle. I can do it this way. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. The brake chamber clamp, it is considered a separate piece at DMV. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged, not leaking. Securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. Okay? This is my push rod. You see this? Push rod and slack adjuster. Push rod, slack adjuster. Not cracked, broken, or damaged. My push rod's not leaking. It's securely mounted to the vehicle. Not missing any hardware. The slack adjuster is connected to the push rod by a pin and a cotter pin. They are not cracked, broken, or damaged. They're not missing any hardware, and they're securely mounted to the vehicle. With my wheels chocked and my brakes released, there should be no more than 1 inch of play in my slack adjuster. That is important. 3/4 of an inch on my alternator belt, 1 inch on my slack adjuster. This is my ABS wire. It's not exposed, frayed, or damaged. It's securely mounted to the vehicle. It's not missing any hardware and is properly routed. My air brake line hose has no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. It's not leaking. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. Okay? Next, we're going to go to the brake liner. Let me find a place where you can see this. Okay? Okay? Brake liner, brake shoe. My brake liner. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. There's no discoloration on my brake liner or my brake shoe, which would be an indication of an overheating or a braking issue. My brake shoe has to be at least 1/4 of an inch at its thinnest point of material. I want to make sure you can see that. 1/4 of an inch at its thinnest point of material. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely attached to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. No discolorization that would indicate an overheating or a braking issue. There's no debris between my brake liner and my brake shoe. Free of debris and contaminants. Okay? Next, I would go to my inside hub seal. And my outside hub seal. Okay? They're not cracked, broken, or damaged. They're not leaking. Securely attached to the vehicle. Okay? If my hub seals were leaking, I would see puddling here or a spin trail. Okay? They're not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely attached to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. If I needed to add fluid, I would do so through the cap right here. The cap is not cracked, broken, damaged, or leaking. securely attached to the vehicle. Now, I would go with my outside rim, inside rim, my rims. They're not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely attached to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. No illegal welds, no illegal holes. They're securely attached to the vehicle by the lug nuts. Make sure you touch all of the lug nuts. All of the lug nuts are not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely attached to the vehicle. If they were cracked, broken, damaged, or not secured to the vehicle, this is a steel rim. I would see a rust trail on either on the lug nuts or the rim. Securely attached to the vehicle. My rim it's not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely attached to the vehicle. No illegal holes, no illegal welds. Okay? Same with the lug nuts. Next, I would go with my tire. The outside of my tire, the inside of my tire, the face of my tire. These are steering tires. And steering tires are different than the rest of the tires in a couple ways. Number one, see the tread depth? At the deepest point, it can be no less than 4/32 of an inch. Steering tires must match on both sides. They cannot be recapped, retread, or regrooved. Okay? And a bonus, they have to be rated. So again, steering tires are different. At the deepest point of the tread, they can be no less than 4/32 of an inch. Tires on both sides must match. They cannot be recapped, retread, or regrooved. Okay? I also need to add on my tires that there is no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They're properly mounted and they're not leaking. Okay? For the PSI, or tire pressure, the tires must be filled to the manufacturer's specifications. Okay? If I needed to add air, I would do so through the valve stem. The valve stem is not cracked, broken, or damaged. It's not leaking. It's securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. My valve stem cap, which there should be one right here, but there's not, and you must include it separately than the valve stem. My valve stem cap is not cracked, broken, damaged, or leaking, and it's in the locked position. Okay? Very important on the tire. Got to be filled to the tire's manufacturer's specifications. Steering tires can be no less than 4/32 of an inch in the deepest part of the tread. They cannot be recapped, regrooved, or retread, and they must be matching on both sides. Okay? Got my tires, I got my rims, I got my hub seal, I got my brake chamber clamp, push rod, slack adjuster, brake liner, brake pad, or brake shoes. Can't be no less than a 1/4 inch at the thinnest point. Very important to add that there's no debris in between the brake liner and brake shoe, and you see no discolorization, which could indicate an overheating or a braking issue. Before we get to the suspension, I'm going to do suspension on the other side, but on this side, I do like to do the frame. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged. My frame runs from the front of the vehicle to the back of the vehicle. We do not say it's not missing any hardware because the frame isn't bolted to anything. Everything is bolted to the frame. So for the frame, we say it's not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle. There's no illegal holes, and there's no illegal welds on my frame. One thing you want to add before you go to the other side is the same way I inspect this side, I will also inspect the other side of the vehicle. Now we will go to the other side of the vehicle. So you'll walk around to the other side of the vehicle. Okay. You try to go in order. So we're going to start from the top down. So we're going to start from the top down. You can't actually see your air compressor. So what you will say is, if you follow these air lines down, you want to point back here. Down under here is my air compressor. My air compressor is not cracked, broken, or damaged, or leaking. It's securely mounted to the vehicle. It's not missing any hardware. Also, if you follow my power steering hoses down by the air compressor, you will come to the power steering pump. So you can't reach it, you're going to point to it. Remember, my power steering pump back there. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged, or leaking. It's securely attached to the vehicle. It's not missing any hardware. Something you must remember to say, just like you said your alternator and power steering pump are belt driven, your compressor and power steering pump are gear driven. That's very important. Again, these things are not cracked, broken, or damaged, or leaking. Securely mounted to the vehicle. They're not missing any hardware. This is a good time to go over your hoses. All my hoses on this side of the motor, none of them have any abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They're not leaking. They're securely mounted to the vehicle. They're not missing any hardware. Next, I'm going to go with my oil dipstick. My oil dipstick is not cracked, broken, or damaged. It's not leaking. Securely mounted. Alright, so next we're going to go with the oil dipstick. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged. It's not leaking. Securely attached to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. If I need it, or so the way I will check the oil in my vehicle is I will pull the dipstick out, clean it off, reinsert it, pull it back out, and check the level of the oil. If I need to add oil, I will do so through the oil cap. I will add the oil by the gallon to the oil cap. The oil cap is not cracked, broken, or damaged, or leaking. It's in the lock-tight position. The oil cap seal is not excessively worn or torn, and it's not leaking. Next I will go to my steering shaft. Really important. One of the things you have to say about the steering shaft, there is not more than 10 degrees of play. One of the ways you can remember this is try to look at the steering wheel. When you spin your steering shaft, looking at the steering wheel, spinning your steering shaft, you must say there is not more than 10 degrees of play. So my steering shaft, it's not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. It's mounted to the vehicle by 2 U-joints. One U-joint here at the bottom, one under this rubber boot at the top. My U-joints are not cracked, broken, or damaged, not missing any hardware. Not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware, and they're properly greased. Okay? Next. My power steering fluid reservoir. It's not cracked, broken, or damaged, or leaking. It's at the proper level. It's securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. If I needed to add power steering fluid, I would do so through the cap. The cap is not cracked,
broken, or damaged in the locked position and not leaking. The rubber seal underneath is not excessively worn or torn, and it's not leaking. My power steering fluid reservoir hose, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts, not leaking, not missing any hardware, securely attached to the vehicle, securely mounted to the vehicle, sorry. Power steering lines, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, no leaks, properly mounted to the vehicle, or excuse me, you want to get away from properly, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. My steering box, okay? Steering box is not cracked, broken, or damaged, it's not leaking. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. Before I get to the steering components, I want to go with the suspension. My shock absorber mount. Can you see that? Shock absorber mount, shock absorber. Shock absorber is not cracked, broken, or damaged, not leaking. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. Shock absorber mount, not cracked, broken, or damaged, not missing any hardware, securely mounted to the vehicle. Okay? Down here, we're going to go with our leaf springs. Okay? Our leaf springs, they're not cracked, broken, damaged, or here's a key point, not shifted. Okay? My leaf springs are not cracked, broken, damaged, or shifted. They're securely mounted to the vehicle. How are they securely mounted, Wes? They're mounted to the vehicle by 2 U-bolts. Hope you can see that. Let me get a better angle, actually. 2 U-bolts, a shim, a spacer, and 4 bolts underneath the 2 U-bolts. My U-bolts, nuts, shim, and spacers are not cracked, broken, or damaged. They haven't shifted. They're securely mounted to the vehicle and they're not missing any hardware. My leaf spring hangers, I have one in the front and I have one in the back. They're not cracked, broken, damaged. They're securely mounted to the vehicle and they're not missing any hardware. My leaf spring bushings, see that rubber bushing in there? For the things that are rubber, we say they're not excessively worn or torn. So my leaf spring bushings are not excessively worn or torn. They're securely mounted to the vehicle and they're not missing any hardware. Next we're going to go through the steering components. Steering components. Some DMV instructors might let you group them together. You have to ask, hey, can I group my steering components together? I'm going to assume that my DMV inspector is an a-hole and says no. Then I'll say, okay, this is my pitman arm. My pitman arm, it's not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. My drag link is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. Okay? My upper control arm and lower control arms, they are not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. My tie rod is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. My pitman arm, is secured by a castle nut and a cotter pin. My drag link is also secured by a castle nut and a cotter pin. My tie rod is also secured by a castle nut and a cotter pin. None of my castle nuts or cotter pins are cracked, broken, or damaged. They're securely mounted to the vehicle and they're not missing any hardware. Okay? So this really is where I would start the brakes wheel. So I'll go over that stuff again. It's a good time to stop and say, hey, have I missed anything? This would be the time. You can do a blanket coverage by saying, all my wiring on this side of the vehicle, there's none that are exposed, frayed, or damaged. They're properly routed, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. All the hoses on this side of my vehicle, there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They're not leaking. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. Okay? Set the camera up for the brakes. Alright. So we're going to go to the brake chamber. The brake chamber is not cracked, broken, or damaged. It's not leaking. The brake chamber clamp is not cracked, broken, damaged, or leaking. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. I want to go back to the brake chamber. It's not cracked, broken, damaged, or leaking. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. This is the ABS wire. It's not exposed, frayed, or damaged. Not missing any hardware, securely attached to the vehicle. Next, we're going to go with the slack adjuster and push rod. The push rod is not cracked, broken, or damaged. It's not leaking, securely attached to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. The slack adjuster is not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. The push rod and slack adjuster are connected by a pin and cotter pin. They're not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle and not missing any hardware. With the brakes released and the wheels chopped, there should be no more than 1 inch of play in the slack adjuster. Next, we are going to go with the adjust the camera here. After you do the brake chamber clamp, push rod, and slack adjuster, you're going to go with the brake liner. The brake liner, it's not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. The brake shoe or brake pad, not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. At its thinnest point, it can be no less than 1/4 of an inch at the thinnest point on the material. There is no debris or contaminants between my brake liner and my brake pad. There is no discolorization. Discolorization could indicate an overheating or a braking issue. Okay, next I will go with the inside hub seal. And outside hub seal. They're not cracked, broken, or damaged, or leaking. They're securely mounted to the vehicle. They're not missing any hardware. If they were leaking, I would see puddling or a spin trail. If I needed to add fluid, I would do so through the cap. The cap is not cracked, broken, or damaged, and it's not leaking. Then I would go with my outside rim and my inside rim. They're not cracked, broken, or damaged, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. Securely mounted to the vehicle by the lug nuts. I also need to include on the wheel, there's no illegal holes or illegal weld. Securely mounted to the vehicle by the lug nuts. It's important to touch all of the lug nuts. Each one of these are a point. If you miss all the lug nuts on 4 tires, that's a lot of points. So, lug nuts are not cracked, broken, or damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. This is an aluminum rim. If my lug nuts were cracked, broken, or damaged, I would see shiny threads or metal shavings because, again, this is an aluminum rim. So my rim is securely mounted to the vehicle through the lug nuts. And next I would go with my tire. Outside of my tire, base of my tire, inside of my tire. These are steering tires. So it's important that you understand that the deepest part of the tread must be at least 4/32 of an inch because they're steering tires. They also cannot be recapped, retread, or regrooved. Both tires, both steering tires on both sides must be matching. There's no avulsion, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts on this tire. It's securely mounted to the vehicle. It's not leaking. If I needed to add air, I would do so through the valve stem. I would add air to the manufacturer's specifications. My valve stem, it's not cracked, broken, damaged, or leaking. It's securely mounted to the vehicle. It's not missing any hardware. My valve stem cap, which there should be one but there isn't, is not cracked, broken, damaged, or leaking, and it's in the locked position. Not sure if I covered this hub seal cap, but it's not cracked, broken, damaged, or leaking, and it's securely mounted to the vehicle. Okay? This is the point where I would stop and say, hey, did I miss anything? Because this would be the end of your A pre-trip. I don't think I've missed anything at this point. Covered all the wires, covered all the hoses. So for wiring, alright, so just really quickly guys, if it's metal or mounted to the vehicle, we're saying C is in cat, B is in boy, D is in dog. Not cracked, broken, damaged. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. If it's wiring, you're saying E is in Eric, F is in Frank, D is in dog. No exposed, frayed, or damaged wiring. The wiring is properly mounted, or not properly, the wire is securely mounted, not missing any hardware. And then on wiring you're going to add is properly routed. So again, no exposed, frayed, or damaged wires, securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware, properly routed. For the hoses, whether they hold air, water, hydraulic fluid, anything, any type of fluid or air, you're going to say my hose. There's no ABCs. A is an apple, B is a boy, C is a cat. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts. You're always going to add leaks, so ABCL. No abrasions, no bulges, no cuts, no leaks. Securely mounted to the vehicle, not missing any hardware. You can add properly routed if you want. So, let's go again. ABC, no ABCL, no abrasions, bulges, cuts, or leaks. No cracked, not cracked, broken, or damaged. And for wiring, no exposed, frayed, or damaged wires. I'll do a B video here shortly. This is section A, under the hood. Oh, here's one more important thing. When you're actually at DMV, hopefully you can see. Now I'd like to move on to the next section. You're going to close on. Now comes the three points of contact with closing the hood, but then you should go to the passenger side launcher. driver's side. If you get in the vehicle and start it up without doing that, it's an automatic.